All right, once again, this is Luis Galvez, Product Specialist with TaxWise Online, and I welcome you to our training webinar session for today. We're going to show you a little bit on the TaxWise Online product, how to use it for your purposes, how to operate a tax return, and how to take advantage of a lot of the features and functionalities that we have included with our TaxWise Online solution that you're about to start using. Now, the following topics will be covered today. We're going to talk a little bit about advantages of using TaxWise Online so that you're aware of the possibilities of using our product. I'll show you how to log into the product for the first time using your administrator account and also using the user accounts for each one of your students. And then we're going to show you how to create users, how to assign security rights, and how to do a tax return in TaxWise Online, which is something that a lot of you will get to do, and a lot of times you may have to walk some of your students through the process of preparing a tax return. So we'll start with the advantages of TaxWise Online. And obviously, one of the benefits of using an online solution is that the software will be available to you immediately. As soon as you get set up with TaxWise Online, you will receive an email communication with your login credentials. Immediately, and with that I mean within 24 hours to 48 hours, you should have that information. You log into the TaxWise Online solution online, so there's no installation required. No updates are required to run the software. Every time you log into the platform, the software will be up to date. All states will be loaded. All forms will be there. So everything that you need will be inside your TaxWise Online solution. I'm going to highlight our built-in interview wizard that we have made available in TaxWise Online. And then obviously just a little bit of security will be involved when it comes down to handling tax returns. We're fully compatible with regulations by the IRS. We know that taxpayers' data is, has to be maintained in a secure way. And even though you're not, entering a lot of real information in TaxWise Online for your purposes, the same security rights and the same security measures apply to our TaxWise Online, whether you're using that in training or whether you're actually preparing a tax return. So whatever data you put in there will be secure. And obviously, you will be able to access TaxWise Online easily anywhere, anytime. All you need is an internet connection and then Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. So I want to make sure that we understand that only those two platforms can access TaxWise Online. And with Google Chrome, really, we can go into Apple computers, HP, Windows. So really, Google Chrome will be the preferred platform to log into TaxWise Online. And you can do that from your tablet. You can do that from a laptop computer. And you can do that as well from your desktop computer. You will not be able to access TaxWise Online from your smartphone just because there's a lot of information in the software that cannot fit in that small, screen that you typically have on a smartphone. So it is limited to a tablet, a laptop, and a desktop computer. But once you get in, you will be able to operate it and do everything that I'm going to show you today from either one of those devices. Now, to log into TaxWise Online, you simply go into the following website, twonline.taxwise.com. That is again TW as in TaxWise, so twonline.taxwise.com. You will have to enter your client ID, which we will provide, your username and your password to log into the software for the first time. So let me go ahead and take you into the product. For that, I'm going to take my slideshow presentation down and share my computer screen. It should be coming up on your screen right about now. And at this point, you can choose to go into full screen mode so that you can see a greater view of the TaxWise Online platform. But I'm in the login screen. I'm already at twonline.taxwise.com, and I have entered my client ID, my username, which is admin, as the administrator of this account, and then the password, the one that I have already set up. Now, for your purposes, the first time you log in, your password as the administrator will be what we call the activation code or registration code. And that initial email that you receive from us with access to TaxWise Online will provide that information. So just note that the first time you log in as the administrator, client ID will be provided on that email, username will be admin, and the password will be your activation or registration code. So you put in that information, you'll click login, and then you will be going into the TaxWise online product as the administrator. Now there's a key difference between the administrator account and the user account, and that is that the administrator will not be able to start a new return. When you are logged in as the administrator, you can only review and open returns that have already been started by a particular user. And I'm going to show you how to do all of that. Now you, as the professor, as the administrator, you can set up yourself as a user by creating a user account with your own credentials, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. But do know that when you log in as the administrator, you can only see returns that have already been started. But this is the first thing you're going to see. We're going to take you into what we call the Help Center that will give you access to all the additional training capabilities that you're going to need to get acquainted with TaxWise Online. And one of the first things that you're going to look at is the 2014 user guide for TaxWise Online. So we'll click here and we'll open a separate tab with the PDF that shows you the TaxWise Online user guide. It's about 142 pages long, but it will be created in a format that is very easy to read. It shows you a little bit on how to access TaxWise Online, how to operate the home page, how to go into the return, a little bit more detail than what I'm going to give you today. So do know that that is available, and all you have to do is to click it, and then we'll open that in a separate tab. Now, the next thing you want to do is run what we call a TaxWise speed test. And that is just to confirm that TaxWise Online has all the speed that it needs for online purposes. And it's okay if you don't meet the requirements. We just want to make sure that you can operate it and that it gives you the performance that you need. And for the most part nowadays, all internet connections will be compliant with the TaxWise speed test. Now, the next thing you want to do is create that username for yourself as the administrator or for your first user, for your first student. And you're going to do that under Manage Users. So we're going to go here at the top. We'll click Manage Users. And here we're going to go into what we call the User Manager that will show you all the users that you have already created that have been added to your account. And those are the ones that I have right here in front of me. I have the administrator account, which is my own account. I have some users that I have created. To create a new user, all I have to do is to click Create a New User, top left corner. And then all I need to enter is the username that I will assign, the real name, and the email address. And typically the logic that we follow, and this is not required, by the way, you can enter whatever information you choose, but typically the logic that we follow is first initial, last name, and then obviously real name, which is your first name and last name. I already have a username as L. Galvis, so I'm going to go ahead and change it up a little bit. I'll put in my entire name. Real name, we put in Luis Galvis. And then the email address, we're going to choose my email address. So we'll go ahead and do that very quickly. And then we'll select Is Active User, which makes that user active. And then I want to make sure that I assign that user a licensed user role. That will allow him to go into TaxWise Online because it will give him the right to access that account. So you really want to make sure that if there's one thing that you remember is activating the licensed user by selecting it and then clicking the right arrow to add it to the assigned roles. So and typically, if it's a student that needs access to everything that they may need in the TaxWise Online platform, you really want to give them access to everything, so you can select all of that. The only thing that you want to remove would be administrator rights, because that will allow them to view any returns that other users have created. And depending on what you're doing, if you want them to collaborate, if you want them to see what everybody else is doing, then you will be able to assign them that right. But for the most part, it is best if everybody can see only the information that they're putting in their return. We have a question on the Q&A pod. Can you edit a user or delete a user? That is a great question. So we'll cover that in just a minute. Let me go ahead and finish creating this user. We'll remove the administrator role. We want that user to only have access to prepare and return, to be licensed, and there's really no need for check printing or e-filing, since we will not be doing that in this particular scenario. So we're going to go ahead and click Save. We want to make sure that the checkbox is active user has been selected. So we'll go ahead and click Save, and that user has been created. So how do we delete a user? There's really no way to delete a user in TaxWise Online. What I have to do if I need to deactivate that user, and we'll go ahead and pick Nathan right here. We'll go ahead and select Edit in the User Manager for that user, and we will uncheck Is Active User, and then click Save to deactivate that user. So now if I go to Show Inactive Users right here at the top, I will be able to see all the usernames that I have deactivated from having access to my TaxWise Online account. And it's really nice because you can really deactivate if somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, and then reactivate that account if that is what you need to do next. But everything will be available in the Show Inactive Users. If you want to reactivate that account, then you'll go ahead and find that particular account, and I'll go ahead and pick Nathan one more time. We'll click Edit, and then we'll check Is Active User and click Save. Now you can edit the user information by going into the edit mode for that user. So I'll go ahead and pick mine right here. We'll click Edit, and we can change the name and the email address. However, I cannot change the username that has already been assigned. If I need to change a username for any reason, then I'll just have to make this user inactive and then create another user with a new username. So it's very simple, very easy to understand. There's a couple of more things that you can do in the user manager besides creating users and deactivating or activating users. You can actually restrict the IP addresses that can access the TaxWise Online account that you have created. And what I mean with that is, what happens if you only want your students to have access to TaxWise Online when they are at school? If you want to do that, you're going to go to Restrict IP Addresses right here at the top right corner, and you will enter the IP address from the computer and from the internet connection that you're in right now. And there's a quick way to find out what the IP address is from the location where you're at, and that is by going to google.com and then type in what is my IP address, and it'll show you that number. So that's all you have to do, copy and paste it into your TaxWise Online Restrict IP Address selection. So we'll click Add, and that restriction will be set. Now that will again make sure that only that IP address, which is the internet connection assigned in that security role, will be able to access TaxWise Online. So you want to be careful when you do that. And if you want them to be able to do things at home, maybe work on assignments and homeworks, then you don't want to restrict any IP addresses. You really want them to be able to access this platform from anywhere if they want to be able to work on some of the returns. Now, once again, just to show you the process, we'll create a new user, assign a username, first name and last name, email address. We will select Is Active User, and we want to make sure that we have licensed user as an assigned role before we go ahead and click Save. If you have that, then all you have to do is to go ahead and click Close, and that user will have been created. Now I'm going to go ahead and log in as that user for the first time just to show you what that looks like, and I'm going to do that in just a second. The first time I log in as a newly created user, the password will be the same username. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about the administrative features, but the first time I log in as that newly created user, the password will be the username that I assigned. Now, as the administrator, I can also do a couple of things. I can view all the returns that have been created under my client ID, under my account, and I can do that by going to All Returns on the left-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click All Returns, and here I can see everything that has been added to our account. And again, because I'm in the administrator username, I can see all the returns from any particular username that has access to my online platform. And I see that we have Richard, Rebecca, Mary Beth, we have L. Galvis, and we can sort by that username. If I just want to see what that particular user has created, I can view everything. I can see when they started the return preparation, and I can compare that to the date when they first printed the return and the date when they last printed the return. I can also see things like the name that they chose for the taxpayer, I can see the social security number. I can see the refund or balance due, email address of the client. The next thing you want to ask your students to do and you want to set up for them is return stages. Because when you look at your returns list and you look at all of this information, again, from anywhere, you want to be able to quickly identify in what stage that return is under. Is it in progress? Is it complete? Is it ready for you to review it? Is it being worked on? Are they collaborating with another student? You want to change those return stages so that all you have to do in the return list is go to the drop-down and then assign that particular return stage accordingly. So we're going to say to be reviewed by Louise. I am the administrator, so I want to update that return stage so that when I log in to view all of my returns, I can see which ones are ready for me to review because my student selected that particular return stage. So how do I set that up? As the administrator, I'm going to go to Settings right here at the top, and I will go into my return stages on the left-hand side. And here's where I see all the stages that I have already set up that will be accessible by anyone who has access to my account as a user or as the administrator. So here I want to say assignment completed. That is a new return stage. So we'll go ahead and click Add. We'll click Save and Close. And now that return stage will be available for me to select. So as a user, I can go into my return and I can go to the return stage and I can say this assignment has been completed. As the administrator, the professor will go into the returns list and I can see very quickly which assignments, which returns have been completed and are ready for me to go ahead and review. And I can create more return stages. Maybe as a professor, I want to let my student know that I looked at it. So possibilities are endless. You can create a very long return stage, but you can keep track of everything that's happening when you look at the return started date and you compare that with first printed, last printed, and all that information that is provided here. You can also add more data to the return list. You can go to Manage Return List right here, top right corner, and you can customize the columns where you can add fields to it. You can remove information from it. Like, for example, we have a tax preparation fee column that you can add, a zip code, spouse's first name and last name. All of that information can be added or removed by going to my Customize Column selection. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn. And you can definitely learn a little bit more if you go into the user manual for TaxWise Online. So here's what you do as the administrator. Most of the time you will be creating users. You will be setting up return stages and reviewing everything that everyone is doing. Now there's one more thing that you may have to do, and unfortunately it may happen quite often, and that is because with any online solution there has to be a login. And sometimes, let's face it, everybody forgets the login password or maybe the login username. So a lot of times you will find yourself going back into your administrator account, not to look at returns, but go to the Manage Users and then having to reset the password for a particular user or for a particular student. So the way to reset it is just simply finding that username, selecting Reset, and that will reset the selected user. And the reset password will be, again, the username that you created for that particular user. So I'm going to walk you through the process one more time. But that's how you reset the password. That's how you create that user as inactive. And that's how you assign the licensed user role. So this is pretty much what we're going to do. We'll go into the return preparation, and that will apply to both administrators and users. But now let me go ahead and log out the administrator account. I'll log in as the user. So we'll go ahead and click Log Out, top right corner. And we're going to log in as the user. The client ID will be the same. The username will be the one that I just created, Luis Galvez. And again, remember, the first time they log in, the password for the user will be the same username. So my username is Luis Galvez. My password will be Luis Galvez as well. I'll go ahead and click Log In. The next step will be to create my own username, my own password, and change the one that has been assigned to me by the system. So we'll go ahead and click Change Password and create a brand new password. And I'm going to call it Luis12345. And we'll say Luis12345. And I think I may have to, okay, it worked. So password has been changed. I add a security question, and we're going to say favorite color. We'll go ahead and put it in right here, and then we'll go ahead and click OK. And that security question will help any user go back into their account if they have not, if they don't remember what their password is. Only after they log in 3 times with the incorrect password, you will have to go in as the administrator and reset their account. Now, this is what it looks like for the user. This is what it's going to look like for your student. They get the help center. They get the user guide if they want to review a little bit more information. But typically, they're just going to go straight into preparing a tax return. So the way to do that is clicking New Return, top left corner. We'll go ahead and select New Return. We'll enter the Social Security number. And we can enter any number, any 9-digit number. So we'll put in 123-778-999. We'll enter it again, 123-778-999. And we have 2 options. We can go directly into the tax forms, or we can use the interview mode to receive suggestions from TaxWise Online as far as what forms I need to use and what forms are applicable based on some of the credits that are due for this particular example. We're going to go into the tax forms. I'm going to show you what the interview looks like, but straight I'm going to go into the tax forms and show you that particular process. So we'll go ahead and create that new return. We selected go to tax forms, and here I have the tax form right in front of me. And this is what TaxWise Online looks like when it comes down to the tax return preparation. You will see the forms on the right-hand side. You will see the forms tree on the left-hand side of the screen, and this will show you all the forms that you have in this return right now. I have my Georgia State forms by default. I have a Schedule C by default, a W-2 8879. I have my prepare information by default as well, just because I don't want to have to enter that information over and over again. Defaults can be entered in the return template section from the administrator account, and more information can be found in that user guide that we can access from the Help Center. Very straightforward tax return preparation with TaxWise Online. You have color coding that shows you everything that you need to know as far as what you need to do next, how to get that return completed. On the forms tree in particular, you will see a green color on the forms that are complete. Those are ready to go. There's really nothing to do there. And you will see a red color on the forms that are missing information. So you have to click on that form, and once you do that, you will see a red field or red underline on some of the information that is required for electronic filing purposes or just basically for completion of the tax return. So you want to be looking out for that red. Red means needs attention, and that basically shows you what you need to do next. There will be forms in the forms tree that do not have a green color or a red color, and those forms are just sitting there. They're waiting to be used. They're not actively in the return, meaning that if you print it or if you e-file it, that form will not be included with the print or the e-file to the IRS. The form is just being added and it's sitting there waiting to be used. At the top left corner, I will see my refund monitor that will show you the current AGI, refund amount or balance due, and that information will be updated live as soon as I enter information, and I'm going to show you what I mean. But you want to pay close attention to that because the refund will increase or decrease immediately based on the information that you're entering. We start a return by completing the main information sheet. So we'll go ahead and enter our first name, and we'll say Luis Galvez, and we'll select a home address. We'll put in here 145 Main Street, and the zip code, we'll use ours here in Georgia, 30144, and the zip code database will show me what the city and the state should be, and we'll go ahead and enter it for you immediately. Birth date is a red field, so we'll put in 01/01/1980, and then the taxpayer's occupation, also a required field. We'll go ahead and say teacher. Scroll down a bit more, and you will see that we have the filing status selection. We'll go ahead and say it's a single taxpayer. Scroll down a bit more, and we can add dependents information. We can enter, whether we're using the Georgia state, whether we're doing an e-file only, or a paper filed return. Scroll down the form, and you may see more red fields and red exclamation points that show you what you need to do next. If you're e-filing, you may need to enter some of the e-file information. So if really they don't want to bother with that type of data, they're just going to go ahead and go to the type of return and select paper so that they don't have to enter some of the e-file information. To add a new form to the return, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can go to Add Form, top left corner on the Forms tree, and that will show you the list of forms that we have available to use in the 1040 module. You can go to Search For and just look for a particular form, maybe the 8888. As you can see, we'll find it right away. You can click Add to add the form to the return, or you can also type a description of the form, a keyword that describes what you're looking for. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for that injured spouse allocation worksheet. Just type in the keyword injured, and then we'll find the form that you're looking for. Maybe you're just looking for credits in general. Go to Search For, type in the word credit, and then you will see all the forms that have anything to do with credit. And I can see that there are several forms in here that I can use for credits. Alternatively, you can also go to the 1040 page 1, and then you'll see that a lot of information flows from the main information sheet. But I can go to line 7, for example, and use the quick link right next to the field that will show me what forms I can link to. And I'll click that link to the next form option. And I'll see that we have existing forms in the return, a W-2 linked to 9.7. And I can see also the forms that are applicable to that particular line item. So I'm basically receiving suggestions from TaxWise Online as far as the forms that I can use in that particular line. So we have the 2441, W-2s, 3903, 1099Rs, etc. I can choose one form, just go ahead and click it, and the form will be added to the forms tree, and it will also be displayed in front of me because I just checked that form. The same applies to any line item in TaxWise. So if I go down to line 9, for example, we'll go ahead and click the quick link option right next to it, which is the gray triangle pointing to the right. So we'll go ahead and click it, use the quick link option next to it, and then I'll see my new information forms that I can add or my existing links if I have any. And we can see here that on line 9, only 2 forms are applicable. I can either use a Schedule B or I can use a scratch pad to add information. Just basically add a list of forms. Close out of that, and you will also be able to take advantage of what we call the context-sensitive help, which is line-specific help that you can view for each one of the fields. And here's where it gets a little bit interesting because you'll have to evaluate the behavior of your students. Are they going to look at this information before they call you with any questions? Are you going to make it a best practice that they review the context-sensitive help before they talk to you? It's so easy. All you have to do is to click on the line item, use the quick link option right next to it, and then use the question mark to click and open the context-sensitive help. That help will show you specific information for the line that you just clicked on. So let's say they're looking for, what's AB, FB, DCB. What are those checkboxes for? I can see that information very clearly on my context-sensitive help, and I can identify that AB is for adoption benefits, FB, that's for fringe benefits, etc. Right there in front of me, I have the answer that I need. I can continue to enter information in the return. If I need to delete a form, I could just simply highlight the form in the forms tree and then select delete. So let's say I no longer need the Schedule C. I can just highlight it and click delete. But remember, if it's not highlighted in red or green, the form is just sitting there in the return, but it's not actively being used. I click delete, and now I select all the forms that I need to delete, and then we'll go ahead and click delete to take those forms out of the return and then only have the forms that I need to see in front of me. If I need to print the tax return, maybe for a print preview or just to print it and show it to someone, I can go to print return right here, top left corner, and all I have to do is to wait a couple of seconds for the PDF to be generated, and that PDF will open up in a new tab as soon as I click open in a new tax return window. And sometimes, depending on your internet connection, it may take a few seconds or it may take immediately to open that PDF of the tax return. But it serves as the PDF print preview. It also serves as the tool that we use to print the return, and we'll the printing via the Adobe Print. So we'll go ahead and click Open in a new window. It opens a new tab, and here is your tax return. We have the 1040 page 1, 1040 page 2, in the way that it typically looks when you print a tax return for the IRS. So here's what you're going to use to review the tax return if you want to. You can always go back as the administrator and then go into the actual tax return to view what they had entered. Now, let's say they want to make notes to communicate something to you that you need to be aware of. Maybe you asked your students to make a note of what they're doing, what's their thought process in working with this return. To do that, we're going to go into the taxpayer diary, and we're going to open the notes section where they can click Add Note. We'll stamp it with the date and the time when they enter the note, and they can say here, please review page or 1040, page 2, line 40. I was not sure about this scenario. For example, they can add a note right here. We'll go ahead and click Save. The note will be associated with this tax return, and I'm going to go back into the administrator account and show you how you can see that type of information. So notes can be added for the tax return in a taxpayer diary. Then anyone who can access this return, including the administrator, will be able to read. Now we want to make sure that we run diagnostics to check that the return has everything that we need. And to do so, we're going to click Run Diagnostics right here at the top. And that will split the screen for us and show any electronic filing error that I may have in place that will stop me from e-filing the return. So we'll go ahead and show you anything that you're missing out in red, and not only will show you the error, we'll hyperlink you back to the form and the field where you need to click and enter the information. So on the main information sheet, the taxpayer and practitioner PIN must be entered. You have a third-party information, including a third-party telephone and PIN on the main information sheet. So keep that information, answer yes or no. Do you want to electronically file the Georgia state return? Those are some of the things that I need to look into. I also have warning messages that will show me information that I need to be aware of, but it's not necessarily an electronic filing error or anything that I really need to fix for e-filing purposes. And that is just, again, to get them into the mindset of, here are some of the things that you will have to do as a tax preparer where you decide to become a tax professional on your own after our class. Here are some of the things that tax professionals have to do to be able to e-file returns to the IRS. Now we're going to go ahead and exit the diagnostics and show you one more thing, and that is the interview mode. With the interview mode, you're not going to get the forms data entry that you see right now on your 1040 page 1, for example, 1040 page 2. That's truly how you learn to do a tax return. You're in the form. It looks like the form. I know where I'm linking from. If it's a W-2, I use line 7 and link to it from there. If it's a Schedule C, I go to line 12 and then link to it from there. When I use the interview, I don't get that type of guidance. I go through the interview process and I receive suggestions from TaxWise Online. Now, it will be useful if you're thinking along the lines of they're learning what forms they need to use for a particular scenario, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to switch to the interview right here at the top, and at that point, we'll open what we call the TaxWise Online interview. And this is going to take me through all the basic information that I need to complete to get this return to a point where I can go back into the forms and complete everything that I can possibly need for this taxpayer. So we're going to go ahead and stay with single. We'll click Next. Taxpayer's information has already been entered. We'll go ahead and click Next. United States, we'll click Next. Home address, we'll go ahead and click Next. That is already entered from the actual tax return. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the dependent section. If I have any, I'll click Yes. If I don't have any, I'll stay with No. And then we'll go into the types of income. So here I can say several things. I can check some boxes for different types of income that I know the customer has, but I'm not quite sure about the form that I need to use. So I say I have farm income from the operation of a farm, so that when I go back to the forms view, TaxWise shows me the form that I need to use because I have farm income and I have an operation of a farm. So we'll go ahead and click Next. Select a few more. Let's go into adjustments, for example. We had a move in order to be closer to a new job. What form do you have to use for that? I may not know that now, but I will find out very quickly when I go back to my tax forms, because just by checking this box, TaxWise Online will show me the form that I need to use. Maybe I purchased some books or classroom supplies which were not reimbursed. That applies to teachers, instructors, counselors. I'm learning things that I can deduct on my adjustments just by going through the interview portion. We have student loan interest. We'll go ahead and check that. Click next. The interview process will ask you follow-up questions, basic questions with information that will be shown on the actual tax form when you go to the tax form view. So moving expenses will have its own set of questions. We go to deductions and the same thing applies. Anything that I check right here will represent a new form that I see on the forms view, and it will represent also a follow-up question that the interview will ask based on the selection that I made. So let's say I'm done. I'm going to go to the finish and then click finish right here. We'll switch back to the tax forms, and you'll see that now, because I had an operation of a farm, I see my Schedule F for farm income and expenses. Because I had to move in order to be closer to a new job, I see Form 3903 for moving expenses. Because I selected that I had itemized deductions, I see my Schedule A in the return to take care of that particular scenario specifically. The interview will help me to decide what forms I need to use based on the particular scenario that I am handling. It is an optional item. If you want to take the interview out of the user, you can do that by going into the user manager, but it's really helpful for them to have that guidance if they're not quite sure about the form that they need to use. But again, all they have to do to add a form is either enter a description of the form or the form number they're looking for. And a lot of times if they're looking for, let's say education credits, type in a keyword and you will find the form that you need. Click add and the form will be added to the return. So very simple, very straightforward, a lot more information available on the user manual, but it's a very intuitive interface. A printing is available right here at the top. Diagnostics option, you'll click Run Diagnostics, and adding notes to the return will ensure that communication between the professor and the student and will allow you to investigate a little bit further on what they're doing. Now you want to set up that return stage to show the administrator of the account that they can now go into the return and review it. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and click Close Return and go into my returns list. So we'll go to the left, click All Returns, and now I can go into my return stage, and I'm going to say this is ready for review, or we can say assignment completed, which is the return stage that we selected. And we'll go ahead and assign that particular return stage so that when I log in as the administrator, I can see that the return created for Luis Galvez by the username Luis Galvez is already ready to be reviewed. The assignment has been completed. So let me go back into the administrator account. I'm going to log out and then go back to my client ID, username admin, and then I'm going to go with my password and log in to view my student's activity in TaxWise Online. So again, I go to All Returns, and I see everything that has been done. Now, I want to filter by that particular user, so I'm going to go ahead and put in here username Luis Galvez. So I'm only looking for what he has done in TaxWise Online. So I see that return. I see the return stage assigned completed. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Social Security number and enter that return to view everything that they have done. I can go into the taxpayer diary and see that they made a note today at 2:37 p.m. and it says, please review the 1040 page 2, line 40. And I can add a note myself if I need to and stamp it with my username and the time when I added the note, and I can just simply say information reviewed, return looks good. So communication between the student and the professor will be key to moving those returns through the workflow. So a lot of tools, a lot of functionalities, and a lot of features in TaxWise Online. This is what we wanted to show you today. I don't have Anything else that I want to overwhelm you with at this point, just make sure to go back into the user manual as soon as you get your TaxWise online account and review a little bit more of the information that you have available for you to learn in the product. I hope that this training session has been successful for you, that you've learned a lot of information, and that you can see how easily you can start getting set up with TaxWise Online, create users, review the tax return information that your students are creating, and then communicate with them back and forth and just review and move things through the workflow. So thank you so much for attending. If you have any additional questions, make sure you contact your account representative so that they can communicate with us and get those answers for you. Thank you so much again for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.